Hello, and welcome to Forestry Division's Wildfire Orientation. This training has been developed to prepare you for a deployment and provide essential entry-level information for working safely and efficiently on a wildfire incident. We will be using a wildfire scenario to take a closer look at a series of topics related to deployment and wildfire operations. The first section of this course will focus on deployment, where we will prepare you for mobilization, discuss key concepts of occupational health and safety, and finally, establish rotary wing safety. The second section of this course focuses on wildfire operations. In this section, we will provide you with essential information on fire behavior, safety briefings, as well as Fireline operations and safety.
Hi there, this is Sarah calling. I'm a logistics coordinator. We're currently hiring contractors and operators for a fire in our area. If you are available, we'll need you to report to the check-in trailer at AWF 001 by 1700 hours today. Is this email on file correct? If so, I will send you the paperwork as well as the deployment information. Your contact is Alex. Her phone number is 112-233-4455. The coordinates for staging are 55 degrees, 52.497 by 112 degrees, 09.215. We just got the camp up and running, so there'll be a place to eat and shower. Thanks so much for your help, and don't forget your tent.
You have just been mobilized for a deployment. By the time we have finished looking at this topic, you should be able to list the things you should consider before your deployment, as well as recognize ways to make yourself comfortable during your deployment. You should be able to explain the check-in process and recognize the types of facilities typically found on an incident. An incident management matrix is used to define the incident type. Knowing the incident type will give you a better idea of what to expect when you head out to the fire.
Type 5 incident. An incident of little complexity and normally under control or out within the first operational period. Incident commander is the only IMT position activated. Type 4 incident. Limited to one operational period in the out of control stage. Incident commander is activated and other operational positions activated as required. No written incident action plan is required, but an operational briefing will be completed for all incoming resources. Type 3 incident. The incident normally extends into multiple operational periods. The appropriate ICS positions should be added to match the complexity of the incident. Some of the command and/or general staff positions may be filled. Type 2 incident. Will extend into multiple operational periods. May exceed the capability of local fire management resources. Multiple agencies may be involved. Type 1 incident. Most complex type of incident to safely and effectively manage and operate. Multiple agencies will be involved and there may be a declaration of emergency by the appropriate authority.
Working on any incident means you'll likely be in a remote location somewhere in the province with limited access to cell service, banks, and amenities. Before you step away from your day-to-day life and leave for your deployment, there are a few things you may want to take care of before you go. Pay your bills and return borrowed items. Take care of personal obligations. Find someone to check on your home, cut your grass, or take care of your pets. Inform your family and friends that you may be unreachable until your deployment is over. Let's take care of some of those tasks now before you leave. Great! Now that you've got that all sorted, we're going to talk a little bit more about packing. It can be hard to know what to pack when you really don't know what you're getting into. So let me paint a brief picture for you. The forest is dense, the swamps are deep, the bugs are big and many, and the weather changes quickly. And there may or may not be laundry, a sleeping trailer, or wash facilities. Quite the picture, right? The best advice we can give you: pack with your own comfort in mind. Bring a tent and a sleeping bag and a pillow. Bring shoes for working, shoes for wearing around camp, and maybe even a pair of shower shoes for the washing facilities. Remember that variable weather? Bring a warm coat and rain gear, even if the forecast calls for heat the whole time. Pack enough clothes, toiletries, and medication to last you 3 weeks. This includes a towel and sunscreen. There may be a charging station set up at the camp, but it would save you a lot of hassle if you had your own power pack to charge your phone and small devices.
I hear you've been deployed. I know this is your first time on an incident, so I wanted to give you 3 pieces of advice when it comes to packing your bags. There's always a good chance that your clothes will be ruined, so try to bring effective clothing, not expensive clothing. That means warm clothes and rain gear that can handle whatever you throw at it. Bring a little something to do when you're not working. I wouldn't recommend anything fancy like your laptop, but a few downloaded movies on your phone, a couple of ebooks, or even a deck of cards can go a long way. And always bring extra socks. Always.
Depending on the position you've been hired for by the GOA, you may be supplied with some or all of the equipment listed below. Check with your contact to see what equipment you are entitled to and where that equipment can be picked up. You've just arrived at the location given to you by logistics. What do you see? There may be a series of trailers, and one might even have the sign on it that says check-in. If there is no visible check-in station, but you see trailers, locate the planning section trailer. If there is no check-in or planning section, locate your assigned contact. If none of these options work, give the radio room a call. They should be able to connect you with your supervisor, or at least pass you further directions for the time being. Lucky for you, AWF 001 does have a check-in station. They're going to have a few questions for you, so be prepared to tell them your name and home base, your last day off, what you've been hired for, the name of your supervisor or contact. Check-in is a two-way street. While you're providing information, you can also find out information that will make your life easier. What time are meals? Where's the kitchen? What are the sleeping arrangements? Where should I set up my tent? Where do I go to get equipment and supplies? Where's the first aid, medical setup? Where can I find my supervisor?
Hi, this is Alex. I heard you checked in and got all set up for your shift. Why don't we have a quick meeting in one of the office trailers to cover your site orientation and go over a few occupational health and safety details? Welcome to AWF 001. It looks like this is your first time working with us, so I'll cover the occupational health and safety basics for you. But first, let's do a quick camp orientation. Now that you're checked in, I'm sure you'll want to get familiar with the 4 types of facilities available on AWF 001. There is a sleeping area and wash facilities. We also have food services and offices. Let's start with your tent setup. This will be one of the first things you do after you arrive. Sleeping areas are set aside to accommodate tents. Sleeping trailers may be in place, but they're not common, so it's best to assume you'll be staying in a tent. For comfort, the area designated for tent setup should be on flat ground, away from generators, helipads, and general camp traffic. Once you get your tent set up, you can head over to the kitchen for some dinner. Food services provide 3 meals a day, including a bagged lunch when you need one. Keep in mind that drinks and snacks may not always be available outside of meal times, so plan for that. Everything has been brought out here from somewhere else, so stick to the bottled or potable water, and do your best to minimize waste. Eat and drink what you take, and choose what you take wisely. In some cases, you'll be handed a pre-made plate, while in others, you'll be loading your own plate buffet style. We recommend that you choose your food and portion size wisely and do your best to balance your diet. This is for your own health and comfort, so don't be shy. While the food contract is required to accommodate vegetarian and special diets, access to specialty foods may be limited given the remote location of most incidents. When in doubt, look out for yourself. Many personnel with special diets bring some sort of supplement if they aren't certain that the fire camp kitchen can accommodate their dietary needs.
There's nothing like a good meal after a hard day's work, but do your best to keep the day's work out of the kitchen. Work boots and dirty clothes will not be permitted inside, and ensure you're washing up before meals. Wash facilities usually consist of trailers containing sinks, toilets, and showers, with potable water. This also includes any sort of laundry service or trailers with laundry machines that you are free to use. We've looked at the sleep area, the food services, and the wash facilities. The fourth and final type of facility you might find on an incident are the offices. If your job on the incident involves paperwork, you will probably be given a small area in an office trailer. Different sections may have their own trailer on a large incident, or share a single trailer on a smaller incident. While you're working for us, these 4 facilities will be your home base. Working in a remote location means you could encounter bears, cougars, moose, elk, bison, as well as ticks and other insects. All of these creatures are dangerous in their own way. Keep in mind that you could encounter these creatures in camp or on the fire line. Now that we've got you checked in and situated in camp, let's take some time to go over some key occupational health and safety policies. After we finish this meeting, you should be able to identify my or your responsibilities as a supervisor and GOA representative, explain your responsibilities as an employee, and recognize OH&S legislation that relates to wildland firefighting. The Government of Alberta is technically your employer, but as your supervisor, I'm a designated representative of the GOA, and that means I have some responsibilities to you regarding health and safety. Keep in mind that depending on the position you've been hired to fill, you may also be considered a representative and have responsibilities to those you are overseeing. The job of a supervisor or GOA representative is to conduct a site-specific hazard assessment, ensure that workers are aware of their legislated right to refuse unsafe work, ensure the safety standards set out by Forestry Division, the GOA, and Alberta's legislation are being followed, ensure no worker participates in or is subjected to violence or harassment at work, investigate and report all incidents and near misses, ensure that all required personal protective equipment and safety equipment is available and used by workers, perform formal and informal inspections of workers and equipment, know the location, operation, and limitations of applicable emergency equipment. Regardless of your role as a supervisor or a contractor, as an employee, you must take reasonable care to protect the health and safety of yourself and others. It is your responsibility to follow safe work procedures and practices, inform coworkers and supervisors of hazards, report all incidents and near misses to your supervisor.
Hi there, my name is Thomas and I'm one of the pilots working on Alpha Whiskey Foxtrot 001. By the time we're done chatting here, you should be able to list at least 6 things that are covered in a pre-flight briefing, and you should be able to also identify the 4 main hazards on a helicopter. Alberta Wildfire uses machines like this medium to rapidly transport personnel, cargo, and equipment to remote locations, provide reconnaissance, drop water or retardant, and ignite controlled fires. A pre-flight briefing is mandatory for all passengers and provides crucial information needed to work safely around aircraft and respond appropriately to emergencies, should they occur. Pre-flight briefings cover the following topics. A pre-flight briefing should also include location of the first aid kit and survival gear, location and operation of the emergency locator transmitter, location and operation of the fire extinguisher, location and operation of the emergency electrical and fuel shutoff, smoking policy, no smoking in or around helicopters, fueling procedures and safety. How to safely approach and depart from a helicopter. Never approach or depart a helicopter until the pilot signals or verbally instructs you to do so. Always approach and depart a helicopter from the front or the side in a crouching position in view of the pilot. Never approach from the rear near the tail rotor. Never stand in the area of the tail rotor. Never go around to the rear of the helicopter by ducking under the tail boom. Go around the front of the machine. Always approach and depart a helicopter on the downslope side. Emergency procedures. If something does happen during an aircraft flight and the pilot declares an emergency, the following safety procedures must be followed. Ensure seat belts and shoulder harnesses are snug. Remove sharp objects from pockets. Remove eyeglasses and put them in a pocket. Secure all loose gear. Note the location and method required to open emergency exits. Assume the proper crash position as briefed by the pilot. When the aircraft comes to a complete stop, including the rotors, exit as quickly and safely as possible. Help anyone who is injured exit the machine. Do not approach the down machine unless the pilot indicates that it is safe to do so and/or there is no danger of fire and/or an explosion. Emergency features. Emergency locator transmitter. An ELT is a battery-powered transmitter that will activate itself upon impact and broadcast a distinctive distress signal on 406 MHz frequency. This frequency produces a digital signal broadcast by satellite and contains information unique to that particular beacon. Some ELTs will broadcast a GPS location. In the event of an aircraft accident, ensure the ELT is activated. Turn the ELT function switch to on immediately. ELTs are equipped with a manual switch for emergency or test use. Once the ELT is turned on, do not switch it off until rescue personnel arrive. Satellites and rescue aircraft need a continuous transmission. Internal loading procedures. The crew leader or pilot will supervise the proper loading and unloading of passengers and equipment or cargo. Never drive a vehicle under the rotor blades. Always carry tools or long objects horizontally, below waist level, never upright or over the shoulder. When loading equipment or cargo, store and secure the items in the cargo section when possible. Any items placed inside the cabin must be secured and must not block any of the exits. Pop-out doors and windows, emergency exits. Different helicopter types have different windows and doors that can be popped out in the case of an accident. This is important because the helicopter may be twisted, preventing the doors from opening normally. The pilot will provide a briefing on the operation of this safety feature. In addition to the topics we just covered, all pre-flight briefings should include a mention of the 4 main hazards on an aircraft. Rotor downwash. While helicopters are taking off or landing, there is a lot of downwash that will blow sand and dirt. Also, light objects that are not secured will be blown away in the downwash. These objects are hazards to personnel on the ground and to the helicopter. These objects can be blown up and hit the spinning rotors or can be sucked into the engine intake. Jet blast. Jet engines produce a loud, hot blast from the exhaust port of the turbine engine. Main rotor. On flat ground, the main rotor is about 1.5 to 3 meters above the ground depending on helicopter type. However, when the helicopter is on a hillside, the main rotor is much closer to the ground on the uphill side. Protruding and sharp objects. Radio antenna and pitot tubes that stick out from the nose of the helicopter are not highly visible. There is usually an antenna underneath the helicopter belly and under the tail boom. Tail rotor. The tail rotor is about eye level and nearly invisible when moving.
Good morning. Are you ready for the safety briefing? Safety briefings are daily morning meetings that typically cover forecast weather, predicted fire behavior, and safety concerns specific to certain areas of the fire. Depending on the size of the fire, you may receive this briefing as part of an incident action plan. These meetings are designed to provide you with the information you need to maintain situational awareness, personal safety, and crew safety. LACES is another tool used by wildfire operations in Alberta to help ensure the safety of crew and Fireline personnel. Are you familiar with your LACES? Alberta uses LACES as its primary safe work procedure because it's easy to remember and implement. LACES stands for Lookouts, Anchor Points, Communications, Escape Routes, and Safety Zones. L is for Lookouts. Lookouts are trained personnel that are positioned where they can see the fire hazard and the crew. The person positioned as a lookout must be able to assess fire hazard and will warn other personnel and notify the supervisor when the fire hazard becomes a danger. A lookout should be used whenever any of the watchout situations are encountered. A is for anchor point. An anchor point is an advantageous location from which to start or finish the construction of a fire line. Anchor points are usually found in areas that are a barrier to fire spread, such as burned areas, roads, water sources, or large areas of sparse or flame-resistant fuels. Anchoring will reduce the possibility of workers being outflanked and surrounded by the fire. C is for communications. Communications are key to safety on the fire line. Every individual working on the fire line is responsible for alerting others about any fire line hazard. Personnel working on the fire line must be in frequent communication with those they are working with, either visually, verbally, or by radio. Working alone out of radio range is not permitted. Follow check-in procedures and make sure you understand the emergency communications plan. When giving instructions, make sure they are clear and understood. If you don't understand something or are unsure, ask questions. E is for escape routes. An escape route is a path that provides you with access to a safety zone. Escape routes must be cleared and marked for day and night use and should be known to everyone that is working in the area. There should be more than one escape route, as a single escape route could be cut off. The most commonly used escape route is the fire line. S is for safety zone. A safety zone is an area fire line workers can retreat to that will provide protection from the fire. Safety zones can be burned areas, water sources, large rocky areas, or large areas of sparse or flame-resistant fuels. Safety zones must be assessed to make sure they are large enough and close enough to accommodate workers in the area. If there is anything you don't understand, don't hesitate to ask me for clarification. This is a vital part of attending a safety briefing. If I'm not available for whatever reason, make sure you connect with someone who can answer your questions. Let's make sure you got all that.
Fire behavior. By the end of this section, you should be able to name the 3 components of the fire triangle and explain one method of removing each component. Define 6 common terms used to describe fire behavior. Name the parts of a wildfire. Identify how moisture content affects fire behavior. List 4 weather components and their effect on fire behavior. Describe the impact of slope on fire spread. What is fire? Fire is a chemical process that requires 3 things: oxygen, heat, and fuel. In order to extinguish a fire, we need to remove at least one of these 3 components. We do this by clearing a line to mineral soil or unburnable fuel using heavy equipment or hand tools. Fuel can also be removed by burning the fuels ahead of the advancing fire or using chemical retardants. We can smother the flames with dirt or cool the heat through the use of water. There are a specific set of terms used to describe the parts of a fire. The head is the part of the fire that has the greatest rate of spread. It is the direction in which the fire is growing and usually on the downwind or upslope part of the fire. The back is opposite of the head and usually has the slowest rate of spread. It is also known as the heel or the base. The flank refers to the sides of the fire, between the head and the back. A finger is an elongated burn projecting from the main body of the fire. A bay is an unburnt indentation of the fire's perimeter. It is usually located between 2 fingers. A spot fire is an ignition outside the main perimeter of the fire, usually started by flying sparks or embers. Now that we've covered the parts of a wildfire, we need to explore the terms used to describe fire behavior. We use 6 key terms to describe a fire's behavior. Smoldering. A smoldering fire burns without visible flame and no noticeable spread. Creeping. A creeping fire spreads slowly through the surface fuels with generally low flame. Running. A running fire spreads rapidly through the surface fuels with a well-defined head. Torching or candling is the ignition of a small clump of trees or a single tree from bottom to top. Crowning. A crown fire advances through the crowns, usually in conjunction with a surface fire. Spotting. Flying sparks or embers carried beyond the main fire perimeter. So far we've explored the fire triangle, the parts of a wildfire, and the terms used to describe wildfire behavior. Next, we're going to take a look at some factors that influence fire behavior, starting with moisture content. The moisture content of the fuel is the single most important factor in determining fire behavior. The higher the moisture content of the fuel, the harder it is for the fuel to burn. Conversely, the lower the moisture content of the fuel, the more flammable it becomes. Fuel condition. The moisture content of a live fuel is high and controlled by the plant. This makes live fuel less flammable. Dead fuel moisture is controlled by the weather conditions like temperature, relative humidity, wind, and rain. These contribute to the dryness or wetness of a dead fuel. This makes dead fuel the main driver of all wildfires. Fuel size. In dead fuel, the size helps to determine how quickly its moisture content changes. Fine fuels like dry grass or dead needles absorb or release moisture very quickly, that is, within hours, whereas heavier fuels like logs can take days or weeks to reflect any change in moisture content. Weather conditions are another important factor that influences fire behavior. These conditions are temperature, relative humidity, wind, and rain. Temperature and relative humidity are linked together. As the temperature rises, the relative humidity falls and the air becomes drier, reducing the moisture content of the fuel. This trend occurs daily when it is generally cooler and damper in the morning and hotter and drier in the afternoon. Thus, the peak burning time of any day normally occurs in late afternoon. Wind helps to dry fuel. The faster the wind, the quicker the fuels dry, especially fine fuels. Wind speed also affects how fast the fire spreads, while wind direction determines where the fire spreads. Wind also assists in transporting embers outside the fire perimeter, starting spot fires. Be aware that any changes in the wind can dramatically influence fire behavior. Rain has an impact on fuel by directly increasing the moisture content. The larger the amount of rain, the greater the increase in the fuel moisture. Rain will also extinguish burning fuel. There is one final key concept to discuss when it comes to fire behavior, and that is the concept of slope. Typically, fires move uphill and faster the steeper the slope. This is because the flames are closer to the unburnt fuel ahead of the fire. The fuels dry quicker and ignite more readily. The steeper the slope, the faster the fire will spread up the slope. Fireline operations and safety. This section is going to cover key components of fireline operations and safety, such as assessments, the stages of control, and the two methods of attack with their associated tools and techniques used for controlling the spread of a wildfire. Air tankers are commonly used to control the spread of a wildfire, so we'll be discussing what to do if you are caught in an air tanker drop. You should also be able to describe the methods used to improve your chance of survival in the event of a wildfire entrapment. Assessments are often the first thing to happen on a wildfire and are continuously made throughout the various stages of action. A wildfire assessment assists fireline staff in developing the best plan, and it helps keep fireline personnel safe by providing key information to decision makers on and off the fireline. A wildfire assessment typically includes the location of the fire, the size of the fire, the observed fire behavior, identified values at risk, and hazards to personnel actioning the fire. An assessment also typically includes a stage of control. There are 4 stages of control used to describe the status of a wildfire. Out of control, OC. A wildfire that is not responding to suppression action such that the perimeter spread is not being contained. Under control, UC. A wildfire that has had sufficient action to ensure no further spread of the fire. Being held, BH. Sufficient resources and action have been taken such that the wildfire is not likely to spread beyond existing or predetermined boundaries under current and forecast weather and fire behavior conditions. There are additional circumstances where being held could apply. Refer to the resource section for more information. Extinguished, EX. This indicates a wildfire has been completely extinguished. Putting out the fire's flaming perimeter is only the beginning of extinguishing a wildfire. 3 key activities have to be done before a wildfire is considered fully extinguished: mop-up, cold trailing, and depending on the size of the fire, infrared scanning.
Mop-up. The act of extinguishing a fire after it has been brought under control is called mop-up. Once the hose line or fire guard has been established and the fire has been brought under control, firefighters will begin mopping up the fire by extinguishing all fire within the fire perimeter. This can be done by dragging hose into the interior of the fire or by using hand tools to put out the hotspots in the interior. Cold trailing. An area is not considered mopped up until it has been cold trailed. Cold trailing means that the area has been checked by using touch to ensure that nothing is burning. Infrared scanning. Rotor wings with specialized equipment and personnel scan a fire in the early hours of the morning to detect heat signals from hotspots. The hotspot coordinates are transferred to a map and given to the ground crew to locate and extinguish. This strategy is typically used on large incidents.
After an assessment, a plan is developed. From there, personnel, aircraft, and machinery may begin to construct a control line. A control line is an intentional break in fuel that can create a barrier to fire spread. A control line can also be used to burn out from. The location, size, and method of construction for a control line is determined by the method of attack. There are 2 methods of attack used in wildfire suppression: direct attack and indirect attack. Let's start by taking a closer look at direct attack. A direct attack means the control line is constructed directly on the fire's edge. This method is used when flame lengths are short and fire intensity is low. The following tools are typically involved with direct attack: hand tools, pumps and hose, heavy equipment, and aircraft. With indirect attack, a control line is strategically positioned away from the fire edge, taking advantage of terrain and natural fuel breaks. Once the control line is established, the fuel between the control line and the wildfire is ignited and burned off. This method is used when direct attack is unsafe or ineffective. The following techniques can be used during indirect attack: hand tools, heavy equipment, ground ignition, aerial ignition. Air tankers are another suppression tactics used in wildfire operations. Though primarily used as an indirect attack method, air tankers and skimmers can also be used as a direct attack method. Being in the path of an air tanker drop can be hazardous due to the weight of the water or retardant and the drop's tendency to throw debris. 2 precautions are in place to keep crews and equipment safe.
The air attack officer in charge of the air tankers and the Fireline supervisors should be in radio communication with one another to ensure everyone is clear of the drop path.
If the lead aircraft flies overhead of you with the yelp siren on, that means the air tankers will drop along the same path within 3 minutes. You should clear the drop path for at least 100 meters at right angles to the drop path. If you are caught in the drop path, don't panic. The main danger is from being thrown by the force of the water or retardant. Lie face down, head toward the oncoming air tanker. Place tools by your side or behind you, since the force of the drop can move them. Cover your head. Stay clear of any overhead hazards like snags or dead branches that may break off and fall on you. Don't move back onto the fire line until you hear the whale siren, which means all clear. Be sure to watch your footing when working in retardant. It is very slippery. Another hazard associated with fireline operations is wildfire entrapment. An entrapment occurs when personnel are surrounded by an uncontrolled wildfire. The best defense against entrapment is avoidance. Personnel must exercise conservative judgment when deciding to move back to safety zones. Timely retreat avoids confusion, panic, and potential for tragic errors that can result from last-minute fireline evacuations. If there is no chance to easily escape an approaching wildfire, follow these principles. Your first and main priority is to protect your airway from heat and smoke. Also, cover any exposed skin and protect yourself from heat by hiding behind something. Lie face down, since cooler air is always present closer to the ground. Another option is to take refuge in a vehicle. If you decide to do this, don't drive through the heavy smoke because the likelihood of having an accident or running off the road is high. You should turn on your headlights and park where the roadside vegetation is sparse, as far away as possible from the wildfire. Roll up the windows and lie face down on the floor with the floor mats or extra clothing over your body. Even in the worst circumstances, it will take several minutes before the vehicle will catch on fire. If this happens, leave the vehicle. One other option is to pass through the fire's edge. In some cases, stepping into the black or previously burned area may be the best place to find safe refuge, though it may be uncomfortable to reach due to the heat and smoke. Look for the area of the fire with the least activity and the fewest obstacles like deadfall to trip over. Then move through the flame front as quickly as possible. Upon reaching the burned area, watch out for fire-weakened trees and hot ash pits.